My name is Thalia Bills and I'm recording this video on the Holocaust. The symbol seen here was a symbol of the Nazi Party. They came to power with Hitler as Chancellor in 1933. This was done lawfully, which may not be expected with their next moves, as it very quickly became a dictatorship. However, the Olympics were held in Munich in 1936. This glorified Germany and made it seem like everything was very good there. However, right after the Olympics, Hitler put laws into practice that restricted the rights of many people, especially the Jews. A Nazi soldier's helmet would have looked something like this. This book specifically tells the story of a soldier in Hitler's army that was Jewish, proving that some people slipped through unnoticed. This book tells a constructed story of how a girl who was doing forced labor thought that maybe if she just didn't put the right amount of gunpowder into the bombs she was making for the Nazi Party, it would sabotage them and she wouldn't be helping them. While this story isn't not true, there were similar instances of people in factories banding together to sabotage the items they were making so they didn't work when the Nazis were trying to use them. Along that line of thought, there's another book called Someone Named Eva that explains how some children that fit the Aryan guidelines of blonde hair and blue eyes and the right size nose would be stripped away from their Jewish families and taught how to be the perfect German citizen, made to forget their original language and learn German and only practice what it was thought a rightful German soldier or citizen should do. This picture might be familiar, as it is one of the main pictures of children that survived the Holocaust. This book is about this boy's story and how, even though they may not look like they were skin and bones, that's because they were wearing many layers of clothes at this point, because they'd been allowed to raid where the clothes were being held so that they could put on layers to be warm, because it would have been cold, especially if you had no fat on your body. It wasn't only children that suffered, but when you were going into a concentration camp, you would have been separated by men and then women and children. Some would be fortunate enough to be told to say that they were older than they were, and they would have been allowed to go in the camp, while others would have been sent straight to the gas chamber with their mothers. People were selected by their ability, not who they actually were, so the people telling them didn't care what age they actually were, as long as they were able-bodied enough to work. Now, most people have heard of Curious George, but don't know that Curious George may not have existed had its writers not escaped from the Holocaust. This book explains how they escaped. Poland was the first country invaded, and thus had the most victims. Some 16 million Jews were killed in the Holocaust. 6 million. Jews were killed in the Holocaust, and 11 million people total. Of this, 5 million people total were Polish that were killed, and 3 million Polish Jews were murdered. Overall, the Holocaust was a horrendous event, and it should not be forgotten. That was a bare minimum of facts, but there's so much more to be learned, especially about people who were hid and who hid people during this period of time. There's a lot of material on the internet that you can find about this, and many more books as well.